Many FBI files saw development in 2021. However, many of the unsolved cases that should have been solved have remained mysterious, including missing people and unsolved crimes. Number 5. Earlier this year, the FBI became involved in the unsolved disappearance of a Maryland woman who has been missing since 2002. The circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Patricia Marie Dudek were very strange, and the FBI file on her case says that the police are investigating it as a case of her having passed away. The last time Patricia was seen was on the morning of January 7th, 2002. She was a 33-year-old mother of 3, living with her oldest daughter, her boyfriend Dwight, and their 3-month-old child. On the morning of her disappearance, Patricia and Dwight were arguing because the boyfriend hadn't gotten her daughter, Jennifer, up, and Jennifer was going to be late for school. Patricia offered Jennifer a ride, but Jennifer refused and walked instead. Not long after Jennifer left, the boyfriend left for work, leaving Patricia home with the child. When Jennifer came home from school, she found her mother's car still parked outside, but there was nobody home. After trying to call Patricia a number of times, she called Dwight. He said her little brother was with a babysitter, but had no explanation as to where Patricia was. It would later emerge that Dwight had come home from work a few hours later to find the baby in his car seat and Patricia nowhere to be seen. Dwight had to go back to work, so he took the baby to a sitter and didn't investigate where Patricia was. Dwight believed she would come back by herself. She had used illegal substances in the past, and he had been trying to get her to go to rehab. She had left before, though never without taking Jennifer with her, and he believed that she would be back. However, only a few days later after the disappearance, his sister came from California to pick up Patricia's young son and take him with her. It seemed Dwight didn't think she was going to be around to take care of him. Jennifer eventually told teachers at her school that her mother was missing, and it was only then that a missing persons report was filed. Since then, local police have gotten no closer to finding Patricia. The FBI announced a $10,000 reward for information about Patricia's disappearance. She was 5'7" at the time and weighed 135 pounds. Number 4. In 2020, the FBI became involved in a Canadian case which has been unsolved for 13 years. But their involvement has not given the victim's family hope that this case will finally be solved. Lindsay Bouziak was a 24-year-old real estate agent in Victoria, British Columbia, and had just been contacted by a woman with a Mexican or Spanish accent to find $1 million home for her and her husband. The call came on February 1st, 2008. In Lindsay's diary, she made notes on what they were looking for, including that they wanted to move in the next 3 days. Their budget was $1 million. It doesn't seem like Lindsay got the woman's name, as the woman was simply listed as $1 million in her phone. She was also unsure where the woman had gotten her number and asked around to her other clients to see if they had recommended her, but nobody had any idea who the woman was. Lindsay found a few houses that were suitable and arranged a showing on February 2nd. There were about 10 phone calls between Lindsay and the mysterious client, including one to the client's husband. On the day of the showing, Lindsay told her boyfriend, Jason, that she was worried about the showing. They arranged for him to show up during the showing and wait outside for her. Lindsay called him later that day to let him know that she was on her way to the property. He was with a friend and they drove to the property together. On the way there, Jason had to call Lindsay for directions. While she was on the phone, Lindsay told him that the clients had just arrived and she had to go. She sent a text with the address, and it was the last text that she would send. Jason and his friend arrived at the property at about 5:45 p.m. Lindsay's car was parked outside, and they could see a man in the window, but his back was turned to them. They waited a while, and Jason repeatedly tried to get in touch with Lindsay, but they got no response. He and the friend eventually investigated the house and found the door locked. They called 911, then went around the house and found the back door open. They went inside and found Lindsay's body in the master bedroom. She had multiple wounds and had passed away at the scene. It was later determined that the time of the attack would have been between 5:38 and 5:41 p.m. Police have revealed very little information about the criminals responsible. Witnesses say the criminals were a white couple, and a sketch of the woman has been released to the public. Her husband was said to be tall with dark hair. The phone used to contact Lindsay was purchased in Vancouver and was only used to contact Lindsay. The phone was registered under a fake name, and police believe they know the real name of the person who purchased the phone, though it hasn't been revealed to the public. Investigators also hope advancements in genetic genealogy might lead to an answer. The hope was that this case becoming an FBI file would help solve it, but so far that hasn't been the case. Number 3. The disappearance of Jericho Laws is one of many missing adult cases on the FBI files, but it's one that hasn't received too much attention. Like a lot of missing person cases, especially missing people of color, there isn't a lot of information available about this case. What information we do have mostly comes from the FBI, which was released not long after she was reported missing. Jericho was 24 years old at the time of her disappearance, and had recently moved back to Park Forest, Illinois, after living in Indianapolis for a few years. According to her family, she had an undiagnosed mental disability, but was somewhat independent. She didn't like clubs or bars and is described as a homebody who regularly attended church. She also liked to go on walks on a trail behind her home alone. At around 7 p.m. on August 16, 2015, Jericho left her home to go on one of these walks, but this time she was going to meet somebody. It's not clear how this information is known, but the identity of the person she was going to meet remains a mystery. She didn't take her purse with her, and had no money or identification on her when she disappeared. It wasn't like Jericho to run away, and she was reported missing 2 days later. Police conducted door-to-door searches for her, as well as searches with sniffer dogs and helicopters, but turned up no new information. The FBI became involved due to Jericho being vulnerable. At the time, there was no indication foul play was involved, but as the years have gone on with no new information about this case, it's not clear if that has ever changed. Jericho was 5'2" and 140 pounds when she disappeared, with shoulder-length black hair. Number 2. The FBI file into the case of Ashley Barnett is one that her friends and family would have loved to have been solved in 2021. As more time goes on, it seems less and less likely that the truth about what happened to Ashley will ever be discovered. Ashley passed away on board a cruise ship in October of 2005. It would later be discovered that the cause of her passing was the substance known as methadone. Ashley was staunchly against substance abuse, and analysis of her hair revealed that she was not a habitual user. So how this substance had gotten into her system remains a mystery. Ashley had been on the cruise with her boyfriend, Jeff Ginsburg, and a small group of friends. It was to celebrate her upcoming 25th birthday, but also somewhat of a detox weekend for Jeff. He had been addicted to painkillers, and though he had gotten clean in the past, he had recently relapsed. He snuck methadone onto the ship to help his detox, something he says Ashley was aware of. It was somewhat of a party cruise, and the first day went off without any problems. But in the early hours of October 15th, things changed. Ashley and Jeff had gone back to their cabin, but had gotten into an argument. Jeff wanted to go to the casino, but Ashley was ready to go to bed. Jeff would eventually just go to the casino without her. At about 4 a.m., he came back and Ashley was asleep. He got in bed next to her and fell asleep himself. It was past noon by the time that he woke up. Ashley was still asleep, so Jeff left her to go meet up with his friends. At 2 p.m., he went back to the room to wake Ashley. It was then that he realized she wasn't breathing. He called for help, and a nurse and then a doctor came to try to resuscitate Ashley, but she had already passed away. Mexican authorities initially investigated the crime, as the ship was docked in their waters, but the FBI got involved when the ship arrived back in California. However, little progress has been made. In the investigation, Jeff revealed that some of his medication was missing. Nobody who knew Ashley believes that she would have knowingly taken it, and Jeff insisted that he didn't give it to her. Jeff was cleared of any wrongdoing, though Ashley's family firmly believes he may know more than he has let on. His word is the only one we have as to what happened inside the room. Even facts like who went in and out of the room are based solely on witness testimony, as the system that would have recorded the cabin door being opened and closed wasn't working that evening. Another, less sinister possibility is that Ashley accidentally took the substance. It was kept in a bottle of over-the-counter cold medication, and Ashley had been feeling unwell before the trip. Even though she knew the bottle was actually Jeff's hiding place, it's possible she forgot and accidentally took it. Number 1. In the summer of 1996, 2 young women had their lives taken in a brutal fashion while hiking in Shenandoah National Park. 25 years later, the FBI has been asking the public for information, but some close to the case believe they already have everything they need to solve this case in 2021. Julianne Williams and Laura Winans were a couple in their mid-20s. They had met as interns at an outdoor recreational organization for women and bonded over their love for hiking. Julianne was a budding geologist, while Laura was at college studying outdoor recreation. She was due to graduate that December. The pair had planned a 5-day hiking trip in the Appalachian Mountains before Laura had to return to college, ending on Memorial Day. They took their dog, Taj, with them. When Julianne didn't return home as planned, her parents reported her missing. It didn't take long to find the couple's car parked at Skyland Lodge, a hotel in the park. Nearby, they found Taj wandering alone. The next day, they found the bodies of Julianne and Laura, a little way off the trail. They had been bound with duct tape before the criminal took their lives. The attack shocked the community. Given both women and their friends would often go to the woods to find peace and safety, for such a horrific crime to take place there was especially disturbing. Investigators were torn as to whether this was a crime of opportunity, or if Julianne and Laura had been targeted because they were lesbians. After students at the college where Laura was studying were ruled out, the case went cold. In 2002, a man named Daryl Rice was arrested in connection to the crime. He had a history of hatred towards women and homophobia, and it even said that Julianne and Laura had deserved what happened to them due to their sexuality. He had been convicted of attempted abduction of a woman at the same park a year after the attack. However, hairs found on gloves at the scene of the crime and on the duct tape used to bind the victims ruled out Rice as the culprit, and it seemed that most of the evidence for him being responsible came from prison house informants. Instead, those involved in the case had another person in mind. Richard Evanitz was a serial killer who took his own life after a police chase, after one of his victims managed to escape. In his last moments, he called his sister to tell her that he was responsible for more crimes than he could count. Evanitz was active at the same time that Julianne and Laura lost their lives. But more damning, the DNA found at the scene of the crime matched Evanitz's hair on all but 2 of the 650 base pairs on a mitochondrial chain. The 2 pairs meant the results were classified as inconclusive. Modern laboratories would be able to give a more conclusive answer, but the FBI has opted to not test the DNA again. Instead, there was a renewed call for information on the case this May, with FBI information-seeking posters appearing on bus stops near the scene of the crime. But so far, there has been no new information, and this cold FBI case remains unsolved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.